Hope and Patience with Amelia Rope, a podcast about business, well-being and chocolate.
Hello and welcome to Hope and Patience with me, Amelia Rope. Our guest today is Haydn Taylor, who founded his award-winning branding, design and marketing consultancy, Big Fish, back in 1994. So 26 years ago, which is a real example of an established business. Clients have included Sofa.com, which is how I connect with Perry, Dorset Cereals, Goo, Charlie Bighams, Sipsmith, Biscuiteers, Yo Valley. I mean, the list just goes on. One thing that has absolutely captivated me while I was checking Perry out was that his children are even called after different typeface. So there's Perpetua, Helvetica and Clarendon. Welcome to Hope and Patience, Perry.
Thank you very much, Amelia. That's very nice of you to invite me along.
I hope I got the pronunciation of your girls correct.
Perfect. Absolutely wonderful. And I'm sure they'll be delighted, yet again, being richly humiliated in public about their names.
Well, at least they're memorable.
Yeah, well, that was the whole point. So we didn't want to have anonymous children. But
I think it's very cool. Perry, I would love you to tell me and the listeners how Big Fish was created, where it all came from, whether it was your dream to do this, your sort of driver.
Well, look, cut a very long story short, I've always been unemployable. I was hopeless at school. And so it was always going to happen because no one was really going to give me a proper job. So I ended up going to St Martin's School of Art. I was at Marlborough College. I then left there, messed up my A-levels apart from art, had a fantastic teacher there called Robin Child, who I actually wrote an article about recently. The most wonderful man who inspired me. And I think everybody needs someone in their lives to inspire them to sort of see what their métier is. And I ended up going to art school, left art school, realised that actually the world of design was a fantastic place where you could have a lot of fun and probably get away with murder, doing not much work. And I ended up working for actually the BBC to start with. Learned a lot about publishing, then ended up going to work for a magazine called Punch, which was a weekly satirical magazine. And I met extraordinary people there, journalists and politicians, all sorts of people, and sat next to, or just around the corner from Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall, who then was a journalist and a sub-editor. And I kind of realized that actually the really exciting thing in life was meeting people, finding out lots of different things about them. And I just wanted to follow a career that was going to make sure that I had lots of variety and excitement. And so I ended up leaving there, working for a company called Michael Peters, who were a pan-European brand design and marketing consultancy, and met my then, what I didn't realize was going to be a business partner, who was a friend called Lisa, who actually I'd been at school with. And about 3 years later, we set up Big Fish with the single aim of enjoying every day of our lives, doing what we loved with people we respected and admired, who would basically make us look good. So yes, it was a sort of chaotic journey towards what was an inevitable starting of a business where we just literally wanted to have the freedom to do what we wanted to do with who we wanted to do it and help people start and transform and grow businesses.
And have you still got Lisa as your business partner, or would you now do it on your own?
Well, lovely Lise and I spent 10 years together and we are very good friends. She's now got lots of lovely children. And about 10 years in, we decided that actually we both wanted something slightly different. Very amicably bought her out and she stayed in the business for a year and now lives not that far away from me in the countryside. So she left. Another old school friend of mine called Bill Barlow joined. And he used to be the finance director at John Lewis. And he was, he's the brightest man on the planet. And he and I were having a beer one day. And I'd just done a soundtrack, fun enough, for the Goo cinema commercial that we'd done in the old Chemical Brothers studio up in Kensal Rise, I think it was. And, I met Bill, who I'd been at school with at Marlborough. And we had a beer that evening. And he and I used to have joint guitar lessons together because we liked jamming and being crap musicians. And I remember him saying, "How was your day?" And I said, "Yeah, it's bloody great, Bill, actually. I just spent the day with these amazing musicians and, doing this great ad for Goo, this good brand. It was really good fun. How was your day?" And he said, "Bloody shit. I've been dealing with thousands of spreadsheets, and actually I'm a bit bored of what I'm doing now. And so he came and joined me, and that was 15 or so years ago. And so yes, he's now my new business partner.
For any of the listeners who haven't come across Big Fish, you will have done in their packaging, and Perry and his it's the team. They create and they spin brands in the most phenomenal way. And I have to say that with my chocolate, I always dreamed of having Perry. And in this business, I've always dreamed of having Perry. Perry is the man to go to. You just need a bit of a budget. But Perry, you're Big Fish, as far as I'm aware. You are very much one of the originators with communicating the brand message in a more personal and nuanced way, with little messages and quotes and facts and diagrams. Where did you get the idea to do this?
Well, you're very kind by saying all those things. I'm not sure it's true, but you're very kind. Because we started the business with the single intention of just working with people we loved and believed in, and we thought would make us look good, frankly. We always realized we'll only ever be as good as our clients. So the important thing was to just work with the best people you could possibly find. And so the earliest clients were people who believed in us, quite extraordinary. And we met people. Our very first client of note was Johnny Boden. And wow. Johnny had just started, his business not long before. And, the answer to the question is we learned everything we learned from our clients. We didn't really know what the hell we were doing. I'm not sure we still do. We're very lucky that people like Johnny come into our lives, and Julian Granville, I don't know if you know him, but the remarkable people who started their businesses with the kind of what Adam Morgan describes as intelligent naivety. They just decide, they look at a category and they say, look, that's rubbish. We've got to sort that out. And that's where the systemic kind of thing that binds all of the brands that you mentioned together, they're all founded by, or they're visions of individuals who are remarkable, and all we've done is help them tell their story to the world through, whether it's a piece of design work, quite most often in food and food and drink, but also in clothing and in the case of sofas and flowers, it's directly connecting with their consumers by doing basically common sense, not corporate bollocks. Sensible, interesting ways of talking to people through whatever means they have available to them, whether that's a piece of packaging or a catalogue or a website or an advert or whatever it is, or a podcast.
Or a podcast.
Yeah, which is probably the best, most exciting way of talking to people these days. But yeah, the answer to the question is we've learnt all we've learnt from our clients, and the only trick that we have up our sleeves is to try and help prevent marketing bollocks get in the way of their amazing stories and their great products. And of course, Perry, make everything look beautiful. Sorry. And also,
yeah, I mean, it is. I was a certain age this year, but I'm putting it on hold because of COVID. I've decided I'll just remain in my old age. But anyway, I was sent this box by a cousin from Biscuiteers, and it's that whole unraveling, you keep lifting another layer, and then you get this surprise, and it's that sort of wow factor without a whole load of BS, to be frank.
The secret that isn't a secret is that for the last 20 years, we've only ever told our clients at the beginning when we meet them, we meet these amazing people. So things that Lisa and I decided to do right at the beginning that's never changed was, one, only work with people whose products and services that we would use ourselves. Because if you're not the consumer, how on earth can you connect with them? So that was rule number one. Rule number two is we would only work with people who would acknowledge our involvement. And actually, we ask for our credit to be put on just about everything we do very discreetly, which was quite a bizarre thing. No one did that in those days. And I mean, not many people do now. And so we only marketed ourselves. We're terrible at our own marketing, as you've probably noticed, by people seeing the work. And then they would discover this little saying, just created by Big Fish somewhere. And our vibe attracted our tribe. And so the cumulative effect was all of these people would turn up, and we say, well, how the hell are we going to help these people? And we were complete amateurs. We don't know what we're doing. So we basically created 5 simple questions that we ask every single client. And the first one is, why the hell do you get out of bed in the morning to do this? What's the purpose of this brand? And I think that's been made very famous by Simon Sinek, who's a phenomenal guy. And years later, he came up with his brilliant sort of circle. And we thought, well, that's fantastic, because we've been asking that for years, and that's an even better way of doing it. The second question is, do you know who you're targeting, who your audience is, and why you want those people? And the third question we ask is, what do you want those people to think, feel, and actually do? And once you've answered those three questions, the fourth one is, how are you going to make those people think, feel, and do those things? Which is, in fact, your tactics. What tactics are you going to employ? And then the fifth question is very simple, which is, and how are you going to measure success? And we don't just mean in profit, but in terms of all sorts of things: success for the consumer, for the planet, and obviously for the business and the people you employ. And we've been using those 5 questions to form our briefs. And anyone we work with has to go through that process with us. And that is a really powerful thing. And it sounds incredibly simple to just answer 5 questions, but actually the facilitation of doing that and listening to people think out loud in the company of others and harnessing their collective genius as teams and sort of surfacing the great bits and playing it back to them sometimes gets people to sort of really rethink how they're talking to the world and how they're expressing themselves as a brand. And that's what we do. And sometimes that can be really so emotionally powerful. You end up people sort of, in tears and kind of going through epiphanies. It's amazing because they are all brilliant. Sometimes they just don't know how brilliant they are. So
do you think that's a secret to having the business for sort of 26 years, is the way that you do this? The way that you extract the information from the founders and their teams, and then you put your sort of big fish icing on it?
Well, you mentioned Biscuiteers, and other brands like Freddie's. I think, yes.
I forgot to mention Freddie's flowers. Sorry, Freddie.
Yeah, you did mention it earlier. You mentioned it earlier.
Oh, did I?
Said, yeah, no,
I did, but before we recorded,
right.
I forgot about lovely Freddie.
Lovely Freddie's flowers, yeah. No, the question you asked, which is, do we think that's the secret to our success or to our clients' success, because we're only successful to the clients? I think yes. I think anybody can give you a list of questions. Getting the answers out means being, there is some, experience and skill involved in that. And I suppose we're not ones for blowing our own trumpet, but I would say that I'm pretty proud of what we've managed to achieve, because a lot of people are frightened of clients. In our business, we have clients. We are in a service industry, and if you don't speak truth to power when it comes to clients, if you don't tell them stuff, I mean, one example would be Jim Arverdijk, who's the founder of Goo, who I think you might know actually.
Yeah.
So really, he always said, "I love coming here, Perry, because it's like sort of getting a Turkish bath. One of those guys where they beat you up." Get a good old beating up, and you come out feeling kind of invigorated. And I remember, so when he first came to see me, I created a brand called Goo chocolate puds for him, which is a startup.
Massive, yummy, lethal puddings.
Yeah, exactly. That was a very long time ago, and I've always loved startups. I think my thing is, every business, no matter how big they should be, should always think like a startup. And so the secret to our success has not only been just, asking the right questions and getting people to answer them in a particular way and think deeply about them, but also to adopt a sort of startup mentality. And that's one of the things that we've really built, which is inherent in everything we do, and trying to remind, all businesses, whether they're starting or transforming or growing, that they need to think like a startup. And I remember with Jim, he came to us and said, "I want to start this. I want to start this business called the Belgian Chocolate Company." And I'd never met Jim. Charlie Bigham introduced me to Jim. Sort of very kindly referred him. And I sort of sat in this room with this very likable guy. Jim's a great guy, and we've become great friends. And at the time, I sort of thought, I'm listening to this guy tell me he wants to start the Belgian Chocolate Company. He's got a great product, but he hasn't made it yet. And so I just thought I'd give it to him straight. And I said, "That Jim, I'm really sorry, but that name just sounds like, something." I mean, I think I used a terrible phrase, like it sort of conjures up images of granny smelling of pea and lavender talc type chocolate, not, great chocolate. It's the Belgian chocolate company is the kind of name that anybody would just sort of gloss over. You need a name that's going to really stick into people's minds. You need a brand that's going to mean something. What's the purpose behind this brand? I started asking him the 5 questions, and I was quite rude about everything he'd done, poor guy. And I sort of got to the end of it. I thought, shit, I've been really rude, actually. I've been quite punchy. And he said, I bloody love it. Great. Yeah, fantastic. And I realized he was a lovely masochist. And actually, I realized that was probably something we should do more with our clients. So we have. So we've got a bit of a reputation for being quite punchy, but we always mean it with good intention.
What, Perry, do you think has challenged you most so far, and what have you learnt from it?
As a business owner, the challenge for me has been to try and steer a ship and maintain the integrity of what we do and not get greedy and, run off. And I said I'm never going to sell the business. But I think from a, probably more interesting point of view for your audience, the brands that we've worked with, the most challenging ones for me have been when we've gone into new categories where before there hasn't been any precedent set. So I think you mentioned Rowan Blacker, who is one of my all-time favourite people. I've got a lot of favourite people, and my daughter says you can only have one favourite, but I love so many people that we've worked with. Rowan is particularly special because he and Pat, who obviously you knew well, and sadly is no longer with us. When they came to me, first of all with Deliverance, which was their food business, and you did your podcast with Rowan, which is great, and then sofa.com. Both of those ideas just didn't exist in the world. And when Rowan said to me, I'm going to sell sofas online, I said, are you batshit crazy? Are you absolutely mad, Ray? And then, and sure enough, he wasn't mad, and we had a great time and we did it together. And that was a big challenge. I still think today that was one of the best things that I've ever been involved in because of the people, because of the challenge and what we did and how we achieved it. The brand identity, they were just so good to work with. They gave me so much rope to hang myself with. We did the most insane 8 days in the most beautiful sunshine down just outside Marlborough. And we had racehorses with amazing models. We hung sofas out of trees. We just did this crazy stuff and just said, look, we've got to make this remarkable. We've got to make people, sofas are bloody boring. And we've got to make them exciting and fun and whimsical, and we've got to catch people's attention. And I think that's what the secret to any brand's success is you've just got to make life as extraordinary as you can. And now the focus isn't just that, actually, rather more focused now on our big new challenge, which is to really try and, I'm going to phrase, I don't know if you can use this, but to unfuck the planet. Because I think a lot of what we've done over the last 25 years has been, has had a lot of unintended consequences. A lot of the brands that we've worked with have been amazing and extraordinary and still are. But I think we're all guilty of doing things that we had no idea would have such horrific consequences. And, I feel pretty personally upset about that. And so do my daughters, especially my eldest one, who was the one who really woke me up a few years ago and said, is this really right? So I think, you could be kind of furrowed brow and rather depressed about that if you want to be, or take what we're doing, which is to say this is a phenomenal opportunity to actually do something amazing. Yes, you can sit there and sob and say we're all knackered and the world's on a terrible trajectory. Or you can say, well, actually, this is a phenomenal opportunity to do something about that. And I think we are, and perhaps, we're deluded optimists in some way, but we are in an extraordinary position of power in the decisions that we make with the owners of the businesses that we work with, that where we can really make a big difference because we have such extraordinary influence on not millions, but hundreds of millions of products that go out every week. So yeah, it's a very exciting time. And the startup mentality that we've always adopted, I think now I'm urging all the brand owners that we work with to think deeply. And our mantra now is think big, dive deep, swim fast, but to really think deeply about the choices that they're making on behalf of their consumers, and not just to make everything beautiful and lovely, but also to make it responsible and to make sure that they're around in the next 100 years.
That's fantastic. I mean, it's something that we all have to take responsibility and ownership of it. And as you say, we can all sort of sob away and moan about it, or we can be active and help unfuck, as you say, the planet. How do you sustain your motivation?
If you ask my family, my wife, or anyone who works for me, I'm an absolute nightmare. I wake up at an insanely early hour, and I just love every day waking up to, new conundrums. So my motivation is I'm terribly excited about shiny new things. I'm a hopeless completer finisher. So personally, what I do is I leap out of bed every morning like an enthusiastic puppy wagging his tail, relishing the thought of being able to speak to some exciting new person or the exciting people that we currently work with about their latest challenges or their latest opportunities. I tend to ask 3 questions every day, which is, what's the challenge or what's the opportunity? How can we help? And where's the work going to live? So for me, the thing that really motivates me is the idea of seeing tangible differences happen quickly. But now what I'm really interested in is the next 25 years. I'm really interested in drawing down carbon and seeing how, what we can do. I don't know if you know about Project Drawdown, but
no.
Okay, so about 3 years ago, I sat down, thanks to my children, my wife, and various people saying, is this really what you want to be doing for the next 25 years? And I sat down with a chap called Rob Miller, who works with me. And Rob and I said, look, what is it that we need to be doing that's fundamentally going to make the biggest difference in the next 25 years? And as a business, how can we help better serve that? And we spent, months, every Monday in a sort of locked room all day, trying to sort of fathom out a strategy. I know Sod's law is, of course, you finish your day, you're knackered. And I was sitting on platform 9, Clapham Junction, thinking, we haven't really cracked this, but we haven't really kind of nutted it out. What's the root of all this? And I bumped into somebody who was sitting next to me, an American lady. The train was late. And as always, I like to strike up conversations with strangers. I think that's really important. Have lots of conversations. Things happen. And she asked me what I've been doing. She said, how's your day been? And I said, actually, I've had a great day. I've been thinking about my company. How's your day been? And she said, great. And she then asked me a question. She said, what do you do? And I told her. And then after about 5 minutes, we had a really interesting chat. I said, I want to, help save the world, sort of make the world a better place. We're really looking at sustainability, but there's just so many things. Every time you look at everything, it's just this sort of ball of string to untangle. There's 1,000 things that need to be done. And she said, have you ever come across Paul Hawken and his book, Project Drawdown? And I said, no. She then said, well, you really ought to read that. And I think she was a biomechanical engineer at MIT or had been or something. Anyway, we said our farewells. I got on the train, I looked this up, and I realized that this was absolutely the best piece of advice I'd ever been given. And when you look at Project Drawdown, quite simply, their mission is to try and draw down enough carbon so that we reach net zero in 25 years. And back then that was, not new, but the fact was that Paul Hawken had gone around to all of the world's greatest scientists, the sort of non-profit sector of society, and asked them to prioritize what they thought would make the biggest difference. And then they published a book of all of their findings, and they modeled everything. And they came up with about 80 initiatives and a very simple pie chart that said, these are the biggest things that will make the biggest difference. And a lot of those things in the top 10 revolved around things that I'm involved in: food and drink, energy, supply chain, refrigeration. And I just thought, wow, someone's written the rule book here. We just need to abide by that. And so that's what we're doing.
Who is the person who keeps you in check and pushes back on you saying, that's crazy, or,
Great questions. You're very good at this. This is look, obviously my wife, Vic. So I have the most incredible wife, Vic, who we've been together 20 years last week, actually. She's my first go-to person. She's the voice of reason. She's insanely bright. And so I listen to her, obviously. I also listen to my children a lot. I think that if you really want to know the answer to any question, if you want someone to speak truth to power, ask a 4-year-old. They've grown up a bit now. My eldest is 18 and my youngest is 12. But I always ask the children because they just tell you how it is. And then in business, the people I really look up to and listen to the most are probably a chap called Will Kernan. His background is he ran things like New Look, the White Company. He then turned around Wiggle and built that into an amazing business. He's got the Midas touch. He's now actually sort of dealing with turning this huge, I think it's 12 billion pounds family business into a sort of sustainable business. I mean, that's an extraordinary person. Julian Granville and Johnny have been immensely important, and Rowan as well. But there are so many people, Charlie Bigham, all my clients, I think are just, I mean, I feel I shouldn't probably say this, should I? I'm going to shoot myself in the foot, but it's quite outrageous that we actually charge them any money because they spend, they do most of the work.
Well, then you have shot yourself in the foot, Perry. They will all be saying, fine, you can do it for free.
Bastards, yeah. Well,
digging a little deeper into you, Perry, I have that sort of inner critic that can be quite harsh at times. Do you ever have that sort of inner critic that sort of sharpens you up?
Well, okay, so yeah, you've hit a nerve there. I mean, I have that every second of the day. For many years, everybody would say, well, what's the whole secret behind Big Fish? Internally, they would say, well, because Perry's on a relentless pursuit of better on behalf of the consumer. And I think that's true. And the thing is, it's a state of constant dissatisfaction.
So do you ever chat back to it saying, get off my case? Or do you just, probably mental chat, internal chat back rather than...
Well, I'm a total head case. So, I mean, look, no, I think
Join the club.
I think all creative people, poor old Ken Robinson died. I mean, what an amazing man he is. And I just subscribe to the sort of Sir Ken's theory years ago, which is creativity is without question the greatest thing that we have. And from whether it's a child or an adult, that nurturing that is vital. And I sort of luxuriate in that. And I think that the only thing that's difficult is not for me, because I love it. It's for the people around me. I think it's exhausting for them. So yeah, the impact that it has is not so much on my sort of mental state of being constantly dissatisfied, because I quite enjoy that.
I am revving up, Perry, I don't know about you, but I'm revving up for this chocolate break. But just a quick fire round that I'm going to hurl at you that's just a simple one answer. Optimist or pessimist?
Optimist.
Introvert, extrovert, ambivert?
I don't even know what ambivert means. Extrovert.
Ambivert is a melange. It's a melange.
Okay, sorry. Yes, I'm definitely both. Yeah. Definitely.
Perfectionist or non-perfectionist?
Ask my wife. Perfectionist, but pathetic at completer finishing.
Have you got your chocolate bar?
It was a difficult question, and yes, I have. I have actually my German chocolate bar. Walnuss.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to. So Perry, you have picked the dark one, haven't you? The dark hazelnut bar.
The whole Walnuss, yes. Before you open it, you have to do the Critic pack. This is why.
What the heck's that?
So the Ritter Sport bar. So Ritter are a client of ours. They're a lovely German family business. Yeah. So this is why I picked it, because the Ritter family are amazing. They've been around donkey's years. They're a family business. And the reason that they made their bars square was because one of the ladies, I think it was the granny, noticed some young boys running around, many moons ago, playing football, and thought they needed some energy. And so she designed a square bar of chocolate that would fit in their little sports jackets so they could have some energy so they could play football games. So they made these square bars of chocolate. And they're really an amazingly innovative company. And they designed the pack so that you could snap them open at the back. So you turn it over.
Oh, that's really clever.
And it's called the Critic pack. And you snap it. And it basically, instead of it's snapped, and it's designed to share. So you snap it.
That's so sweet. Now, I can't share mine because I've eaten most of it.
Well, now,
I'm gobbling it up. But that's really neat. Now, what makes me laugh, Perry, was that I had those facts to spiel out, and it's great. You've done it for me.
I've ruined it.
You haven't, because it's great that you know all about Ritter Sport. Right, we've got to rev on. So the next little section. Perry, what are your thoughts on success and failure?
Yeah, good question. Well, I think let's start with failure. I think that without failure, there can be no success. I'm a great believer that failures are probably the things that are more important because you learn from them. If you're not failing, you know that you're not trying hard enough. I mean, we have hundreds of silly slides and sort of games that we play with our clients to try and get them to come out of their shell and speak truth about things rather than marketing bollocks.
Interesting.
And one of the things I ask about is, tell us about your failures. What's not worked? And people are, there's really important to get the balance of optimism, sort of deluded optimism, measured against practical realities. I always say that a vision without a plan is just hallucinations, basically.
I've had those, sadly, in my early days.
Anyone can have a vision, but you've got to have a plan. And then actually, if you don't implement that plan, it's still just a bloody plan.
Yeah.
So for me, starting with failure, it's a vital part of success. And I think that in failure, we learn our best lessons, and they're quite painful sometimes. So for me, measuring success, as I said earlier, I am a bit of a relentless pursuit of better person. And so therefore, success is normally measured for me on a rolling basis in a number of different ways. Quite often it's in strange ways. But yeah, I think for me, the best way to measure success is to not look at the lack of failures, but to look at the differences and comparable differences that you can make. We have something called, a coach taught me once, a very lovely lady called Amanda Pelham Green, who, by the way, I should have mentioned earlier because she's been a great mentor for me as a coach. And she asked me to fill out something called an ambition wheel. I said, what the hell's what's that? And she said, right, just draw a circle, and right around the edge of the circle, write up, the things that you want to achieve in the next however many years you want to think about it. So I said, okay, I'll do a long one. I'll do some in the 25 years and some this year. And so I wrote 8 things around the edge of the circle. And then she said, okay, right, now from the middle of the circle, draw a line to each one of those things that represents how far you are to achieving those things. And I didn't draw many lines. And she said, do you think you might be a little overambitious? Anyway, we worked together, and I've used that in the company now. So we have a company ambition wheel, and then we each have department ambition wheels, and then individual ambition wheels that all sort of ladder up to the main one. So success for me is, how long are those lines on my ambition wheels, and how long were they last year, and can I see a tangible difference? And also, how many times can I keep replacing those things around the edge of the circle? I was sort of think cash is just it's like a school report. It's just a symptom of success. And actually, cash is very important because it gives you freedom. It gives you oxygen to do the things that perhaps, are harder to do without the freedom of cash. So we've never borrowed any money in 26 years. We've always operated out of
Well
cash.
done.
Yeah, no, I know. I've just got a bloody big mortgage.
Yeah, but I mean, cash flow, and I mean, hats off to you on that one. I mean, that is incredible.
Well, I think, for certain businesses, debt's fantastic. But for what we were doing, it meant we couldn't say no. And saying no is probably the greatest strength in our business, is actually turning away clients because they're not the right clients. And they might be brilliant clients for somebody, but just not for us. Earn, learn, and have fun is why you come work at Big Fish. And
great.
Yeah.
So we are now going to head into the wellbeing section. We're going to find out from Perry how he keeps healthy. There's a little laugh from Perry in the background there. So actually, I was reading about a celebrity trainer who is called Harry Jameson. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he has a new take on wellbeing and fitness, which is he looks at gut health alongside the physical health, because he thinks that both tie in together. So if you're physically fit, your gut is physically fit. And he's all about having these, not this sort of HIIT exercise, but going for a long run or a long cycle ride or a long walk. And apparently it's beneficial for our well-being. What do you do with looking after yourself, Perry? Have you seen that it's changed over time? Do you give it greater priority now?
Massively. So I am incredibly lazy when it comes to doing exercise and that sort of stuff. My brother-in-law, who's also a lovely chap, they have a business called Mother, which is an advertising agency. He's a guy called Andy Med. He and I met each other many years ago because we're great lovers of surfing. In fact, actually, my original chosen career was to be a professional surfer. Unfortunately, I grew up in Jersey above a surf bay, and I spent sort of 6-7 hours in the water surfing every day, doing bugger all but that. Unfortunately, I was a crap surfer, and I never entered competition because I hated losing. So that was that career path that's gone. So the point is, I only really like doing exercise when I'm not really noticing that I'm doing exercise, when I'm having fun. So for me...
So what exercise would that be?
So Andy Med turned me from a fat slob into a slightly less fat slob.
A lean machine.
A few years ago, where I love doing things they're outdoors. I don't like I never go to a gym. And so I think he made me go ski touring with Rowan, actually, fun enough. I dragged Rowan along. We
that
both
would be
failed.
hilarious.
Yeah, and instead of doing it normally, like most people, where you just sort of start off sort of on a little baby slope, he took us up something called the Gran Paradiso, which is like 4,000-meter mountain. And both Rowan and I, well, I mean, I failed so dismally, after the first 1,000 meters, but I think I spent 2 days and then I was knackered. But yeah, I like doing things that are outdoor, get outside, because actually you mentioned the theory about gut health. I completely agree that, eat well, live well, sleep well, and get outdoors and have, connect with the real world. I can't bear being inside gyms and doing weights. I had personal trainers that used to turn up to my house on a Monday. In fact, there was this lovely guy called Matt, and my wife Vic bought me for my birthday because I was so fat, and my friends were saying, Perry's just totally going to die of a heart attack, and he's a hypochondriac, so that's not good. So she bought me for my birthday. She said, "Darling, I have bought you your birthday present. It's a personal trainer." And he's outside now, and it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and I lay in bed with a cup of tea and a piece of toast, and went, "Well, I think you're going to enjoy your new session." And I went, "What?" I said, "I'm not bloody going down there." So poor Vic, then having done this lovely thing of buying me a personal trainer, for once a week for a few weeks, then ended up running around the garden with this guy because she was so embarrassed that I refused to come out to play. But so
are you doing any regular exercise, Perry?
Yeah, so I cycle, I swim. We're very lucky down here in Somerset. We've got a lovely home. I actually go running, but I'm crap at all of them. But I love it. And actually, interestingly, the theory that your chap that you mentioned earlier talked about. There's an amazing guy called, I can't remember his name actually, but he wrote a book called Hacking the American Dream. He was a psychologist, I think. And he basically has this rule called the 4 C's, which I kind of agree with when it comes to well-being. And he says that after 35 years of watching Americans, with terrible diets and, all sorts of issues, he's come to the conclusion that there's a sort of the route to happiness is built on 4 C's. And the 4 C's he talks about are the ability to cope, the ability to cook, or coping, cooking, feeling of contribution, and connecting. And it's all built around serotonin enhancement, of the fact that we're only as good as our hormones that make us feel how we do. And that in order to sort of heighten our happiness and well-being, at the heart of it, this sort of serotonin hit that you get from eating foods that are high in tryptophans, I think they're called, eating the right foods, but also the mere act of cooking and connecting with people. We get that lovely social interaction, which you don't get on social media, ironically. Social media prompts adrenaline, because you're excited about someone liking a post or responding. But when you physically... Or
you're disillusioned when they don't...
Or the lack of or the tumbleweed, yeah, exactly. But when you actually meet people, that's I think the biggest problem with COVID, is that when you actually meet people, it's a bit like patting a dog. You get a rush of serotonin because you're physically in the presence of somebody. Yeah, well, yeah, and actually, even talking to people like this, conversations, I think, could be the 5th C. Do
you ever get stressed, Perry?
Oh, massively.
And if you do, so how does it affect you? Does it make you short-tempered, or does it make you, I don't know, quiet? Or I can't believe you'd ever be quiet.
No, never. I literally talk in my sleep. My poor wife. So Bill Barlow had a brilliant line. He's a man of few words, but when he says anything, they mean something. And I remember he said, "Perry, you do get quite stressed. There's no doubt. You need to know that there are 2 types of stress. There's stress and there's suck stress." And I was like, "What?" He said, "Yeah, there's stress, which is like just general stress. And then there's suck stress through success." That's what you suffer from, which is this sort of, I know what he meant, which is that it's this sort of, it's good stress. It's good stress.
Constant achieving, pushing, striving.
Yeah, I think they push themselves, and I think that's sort of almost like, I suppose, a sports person. Yeah, it's a different kind of stress. But yes, I do get stressed, and I like to play the piano and sort of do mindful things in music that I can get me into flow, and just I'm having piano lessons. It's great.
Perry, could you recommend a book for the listeners? I know you mentioned earlier on Adam. I can't remember the name of his book. Was it Eating the Big Fish?
Eating the Big Fish. So that's quite an old book, but it's still as relevant to today. And Adam,
what's his surname again?
Adam Morgan. I mean, there are so many books I could recommend that it's hard to know, but I would say that there's no doubt that Adam Morgan and Seth Godin books, any books written by those guys, are amazing. Seth Godin I love books like that by people who talk about, business, but in a way that doesn't feel like business. That they talk about human side of business. So I'd say Eat the Big Fish, any book by Seth Godin. There's a brilliant book. I met a wonderful guy the other day called David Gluckman, who is 82, and he invented Bailey's Irish Cream. And he has written a book.
Good for him.
Yeah, and he's written a book called That Shit Will Never Sell. and it's brilliant. And I'm actually halfway through it at the moment. But it's got lots of pictures, and it's about basically the brands that he's over the years. He is the father of so many extraordinary brands. In fact, actually, we're hopefully working on a project that, who knows? We've become instant buddies. I love it when you meet people you sort of just instantly gel. But yeah,
I know
that shit will,
isn't it? Refreshing.
Yeah, it's so nice.
I think we're probably going to have a second episode with Perry. There's just so much to extract from you. Perry, just very quickly, what advice would you give people setting up their own business, especially in this new sort of COVID-19 era?
My advice generally is I wouldn't worry about COVID in terms of starting up a business, because starting up a business, things will always be either great or shit. And there's never a good time to start a business. It's like planting a tree. The best time to plant a tree was 50 years ago. So the best time to start a business was probably 50 years ago. So let's just get on with it. That's my first piece of advice. The second thing would be to ask those 5 questions. Really know why you're doing it, and what do you genuinely want to leap out of bed every morning and enthuse and get excitement, or are you trying to make money out of your hobby? And if you're trying to make money out of your hobby, don't do it. Just keep it as a hobby. It'll cost you a fortune, and you'll have a whole bunch of misery. Really know who it is that your first 10 customers are going to be, or your first customer. Really think about the minimum viable product, the minimum viable audience, and really focus on those. Don't think about 5 years down the line. Think about tomorrow and the week after at the beginning, because ultimately you're going to need those customers to be your marketeers. Don't go and raise lots of money. In fact, hold on to your equity as much as you can. We've taken stakes in businesses. One of the things we do is we share risk with quite a lot of our clients. Well, not quite a lot, but the ones where it's appropriate. And it's always important to remind people the value of a company. At the outset, it's worth nothing and worth a lot to you, but it's worth nothing to anyone else. And then there's a tipping point. And so I would counsel people to just value the equity at the beginning, so that you don't go rushing around dishing it out, so that you end up being 5% shareholder in the business that you build. Really think hard about, and actually set a date, write a check to yourself for £1,000, post, or whatever the modern day equivalent of that is. Post date it to the time when you're going to take that out of the bank of your business account as a dividend, and bloody make it happen. Don't start talking about we're never going to make a profit. Make sure the day when that company is going to pay you that first £1,000. When is the first £1,000 going to actually come out of your bank? That's a really key thing. And just maintain a startup mentality to the day you die. Just don't ever think that the world isn't full of companies that are about to come and eat your lunch. The paranoia is there's always somebody who's better than you, faster than you, leaner than you, and they're out to get you. So I'm afraid that is the fish. Fish survive because they're scared and they swim away.
They swim away. So Perry, in the sort of closing of this episode, where have you had to experience hope in your life? And can you share a time where you had to have a lot of patience?
This is a very personal thing. I mean, I've had to experience hope when my wife got cancer. And that was the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And I think when that, sadly, this happens to so many people, and that was 7 years ago, and touch wood, I say touch wood, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and, completely out of the blue. And I thought, wow, I just didn't know what the train hit me, and there's nothing you can do. We got through that. And then she was diagnosed again a few years later with a new one. And that really hit us. And I think hope throughout all of that, the power of her positive reaction to it, her extraordinary, the whole family and everyone and all our friends and everyone at work, their extraordinary ability to get us through that has made me realize that there should always be hope. And, it's very easy to become despondent, as I said earlier. And I think that's that's something that I hope no one has to experience, but I'm afraid it's all too common. So I've learned more about hope in that episode than anything else. And in terms of patience, I am notoriously impatient. So I think, we've just hired a new MD, and I've given him a year to make me redundant. So I'm going on holiday in a year's time with Vic when our last child leaves home to go off to school, and we've got to be empty nesters. I think I might have to be patient on that one, but it's a bit like waiting for Christmas. But yeah, I want to get excited about lots of projects that currently the role of MD has prevented me from doing within Big Fish. So I'm looking forward to being the man who goes out running around making Big Fish even more notorious perhaps, and more able to help. So I'm going to have to be patient. So I'm looking forward to that new role in 12 months' time, but I'm going to have to be very patient.
And Perry, where can our listeners find out more about Big Fish and also more about you? I feel that you're very active on LinkedIn. I love seeing what you're chatting about on LinkedIn. But where can they find out more?
Embarrassingly, we are absolutely hopeless at our own marketing. So our website is 7 years out of date. So we're like cobblers with shoes, with holes in their shoes. So they can look at www.bigfish.co.uk, which hopefully will soon be significantly more up to date, and you'll actually be able to use it on a mobile phone, which is rather embarrassing. And then, I think the LinkedIn thing is, I found that especially during lockdown, that it's been a really helpful tool to keep in touch with people. And actually LinkedIn, is an amazing forum. So yes, I have a LinkedIn page that I kind of update as regularly as I can. I think the great thing about LinkedIn is that you can share so many different things and discover so many different things. It's an extraordinary tool.
So before we say goodbye to Perry, I would like to give you my book recommendation and quote for this episode. The book I'm going to recommend is Gifts from the Sea by Anne Morrow Lindbergh. It's a book which is really modern day meditations and reflections inspired by shells that she found or things revolving around the ocean when she was taking a break by her beach house. And they are on youth, age, love and marriage, solitude, peace and contentment. And they are absolutely superb. And the quote is from the author Marie Forleo. Everything is Figure-Outable is her book. And it's, I win or I learn, but I never lose. So I'd love to say thank you so much to the wonderful Perry.
Well, thank you. It's been an honour, a privilege and a pleasure.
That sounds like a strap line that you reel out on everything. I'll listen to you on other podcasts and I'll think, oh, there he goes again.
I didn't. I actually literally just came up with that one. I wasn't. I'm feeling now really embarrassed.
Oh, no.
Bloody marketing. It's always in triplets, isn't it? Everything comes in threes.
I like threes.
Honest, tasty and real.
Okay, so hold on. I'm just going to do this last bit.
Okay.
A huge thank you for finding the show. I hope you enjoyed the chat. Don't forget to subscribe to get the latest episode. And if you're enjoying the show, it would be truly fab if you could rate and review it. Any book recommendations, quotes, songs can be found in the show notes and on the website too. So until the next time, however tough the times get, keep that inner sparkle you have.
Hope and Patience with Amelia Rope. Join the conversation at hopeandpatience.co.uk. Find Amelia on Facebook at Hope and Patience or on Twitter and Instagram at Amelia_Rope.